Hey, I'm Sterling with Martin Marine, and on this week's episode we're going to be showing you how to replace a water pump on a Mercury 2-stroke outboard. This will be the same process for any motor from 1986 through 2006, and any motors ranging from 6 horsepower through 15 horsepower. So just stay tuned and we'll show you how it's done. Okay, so for the first step, we're going to want to remove this little bumper here, which is what this is for. Is if you were to hit something while you're riding down the river, it'll hit this little release and it'll kick your motor up so you don't destroy your gearbox. So go ahead and take a 5/16 wrench and we're going to remove this piece. Okay, so next we're going to need to disconnect the shift linkage. Your motor may look slightly different. Of course, it's missing the carburetor right now. This is the electric start version, so it's got a lot of different components that your regular motor may not have. If you do have this electric start version, you're going to need to remove the starter because it's going to be in the way of this tab we're going to remove. Is what you're going to want to do is just lift up on this tab like that, and then we're just going to want to slide it out like that. And that's going to allow the shift linkage to slide out when we pull the lower unit off. Okay, so for the next step, I like to tilt the motor up just because it's a little bit easier to get to the bolts down in the lower unit. So we'll want to put our motor in the unlock position. So just lift up on this tab and put it in the down position. And then we're going to lift up on this tab down here and hold it up while we lift the motor up until it locks into place like that. And then we're going to pull this bolt out. Also, there's one bolt on the other side and one on top here. They're either going to be 10mm bolts or 13mm. They changed them throughout the years, so you'll just have to check that out. And once we get those bolts out, we'll go ahead and pull the lower unit off. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to go ahead and pull this lower unit off. We got all the bolts out now, and I recently had this one off, so it's going to come off fairly easy, but you may have to fight at it a little more. You're just going to want to grab it from the cavitation plate and just kind of pull back on it, and you may have to shake back and forth. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and pull this one off. Just pull straight out like that, and we'll go ahead and set the lower unit to the side. Well, this is not totally necessary, but I like to build kind of a stand to hold my lower unit in because it can be a little bit hard to hold while you're working on it. Never put your lower unit in a vise or anything like that because this is aluminum, it's soft, and most of it's hollow. There's a good chance you'll crack something. But the first step is we'll want to remove is these 4 10mm bolts around the top cover for the impeller. And I've just got an electric wrench, makes it a little faster and easier. Okay, now we'll just pull this cover straight off. Just kind of work it straight up. And we'll set that to the side. The impeller on this is pretty new, so it's totally fine. So what you are looking for is any kind of damage like this on an impeller, you're going to want to definitely replace it. Here's an example of a really bad impeller. But we're just going to go ahead and you just pull this impeller straight up off the shaft, and there's a small key underneath it that you don't want to lose. That's actually what holds the impeller in place, and so it can spin around the shaft. So we'll just slide that straight off, and then we'll remove this plate, and there should be a gasket under it, which there is. We'll set that to the side. Okay, now we're going to remove our last 10mm screw, or bolt I should say. Okay, now this whole assembly should actually come up. I like to kind of put my finger up underneath here and kind of start lifting up like that. And the shift rod is going to come up with it. And kind of watch for this water pickup tube, because it's going to kind of get caught up under here, but you just kind of got to work it out and hold the drive shaft down while you do it. And just pull straight up. When you do go to pull this out, you kind of want to keep in mind which direction this is pointing, as well as how many threads this is screwed on. Sometimes I'll try to clean this off and spray just a little bit of spray paint. That way I'll have a mark where to screw it up to. But go ahead and just pull this off. And also make sure that this little clip is on here. A lot of times it's missing or broken, because you're definitely going to need that for everything to work correctly. So just go ahead and pull this whole assembly off. Now the next thing you're going to need is a good quality water pump repair kit. The part number is going to be 46-42089A5. And this, what comes in that kit is pretty much everything you'll need to rebuild it. It does come with the impeller too. I already have that out. But for the first step, you're going to have to take this piece along with these two seals that are supplied, and these two seals go back to back on the flat edges. They go just like that. And what you have to do is you have to beat these in nice and straight, and it's best to do one at a time. So the first one you'll face like that. And what you can use is a socket that is the exact same diameter as this, and beat it in with a hammer. Now Mercury does make a tool for this, and this is what I use. And it is part number, I don't know if you can see that. Part number is 91-13655T. And it looks like this. I do so many of them, it was just worth me buying the tool. But you can just slide it on just like that, and it just presses on it nice and even. Before you put these in too, you're going to want to take some grease and just kind of rub it around the edges. That way they go in a little bit easier. Okay, now that we got this all cleared out with the dirt dauber nest, we're going to pull this old seal off just like that. Slide our new one on. It's all the way down to that nipple there. Then we're going to take this seal, and it's going to go right here in this opening. Just like that. Right back in here. It's probably a good idea to put a little bead around it just so it slides in easier. Okay, now this one's fitting a little snugger than I'm used to. Alright, there we go. Alright, now that's in place, we're going to take this little keeper and we're going to slide it over just like that. We can kind of push this out of the way. We'll take our new screw with the number 2 head on it. Take our number 2 screwdriver, screw it in. Now a lot of people ask questions about this part. They say this never goes flush against the plastic here. That's normal. Just screw it down until it stops. Just like that. Okay, next we're going to grab our shift rod again. And I like to just put just a dab of grease on here. And just kind of grease that whole rod up really lightly to rub off any excess. That's going to help when you slide this on. through that new seal. It'll slide a lot easier. Then we're going to take that clip that we had earlier. We're just going to clip that right back on. Probably need to take the needle nose pliers to do that. Alright, it's on there. Good thing I didn't lose it. So that goes just like that. I got a little bit of grease up there, so I'm going to wipe that off. Now we're going to take that tip again. We're going to screw this back on, and like I said earlier, just remember how many turns. So this looks like a starting point for me, and I had it on 13 turns. So 1. Alright, that's where I had mine. So everything should be set up like that. And next we're going to put our seal back on the top of here. Okay, I went ahead and put the gasket on here. Do note there's a little hole there on the gasket. Also look on the bottom of this plastic and you'll see another hole. Make sure those are on the same side. Go ahead and try to line your holes up as good as possible. And with the shift rod, you'll want to face it in this direction with the bend in the rod going towards the front of it. And make sure your tip is pointed in that direction. We'll go ahead and slide this over the drive shaft and start coming down with it. And you're going to have to fight this a little bit. The gasket's going to move around until we get really close. Just come in straight with it. Now you're going to see the water tube is going to want to hang over the edge of here. We've got to just kind of tilt this in and somewhat kind of fight it in there like that, where to clear. Then we just keep coming down straight. And once this gets around it, it'll get easier, just like that. Just keep coming down with it. Got to make sure our shift rod is going in there right. This can be a little finicky. There we go. Just keep coming down with it. And before you go all the way down, just make sure that gasket looks lined up correctly. So I'm just going to take a couple seconds to make sure it looks to my liking. Okay. Alright, that looks good. Now is what you want to do is you want to push down on this shift rod, and you want to kind of feel like a spring action, and that way you know it's in there correctly. See how it kind of pops up? That's what you're looking for. There's no gear oil in here right now, so there's no lubricant to really push up on it. But that all looks just good. Okay, now we want to take our next gasket. You'll see some hole cutouts, and you want it to go over these two little tabs you'll see on here. So we'll go ahead and slide this on down. Just like that. And then the same thing for this plate. Okay, that looks like the right direction. Just like that. Okay, now we want to take a little bit of our marine grease and just rub just a little bit right here on the top of this plate. That'll help out the impeller when you first put it in here. Give it a little bit of lubricant. Don't go crazy on the grease, just a little bit there. Alright, now we're going to want to put the impeller back, and you're going to need your key. Okay, now it gives you these little plastic washers. Sometimes they're clear. You're going to want to go ahead and slide one down on there. Then you're going to want to put your key in for your impeller, and it goes in that little cutout area you see on the drive shaft. And then we'll take our impeller and slide it down the drive shaft. Alright, and you just want to line that key up. There's a little cutout on the inside of this impeller, and slide it down over the key. Sometimes this can be a little tricky. Mine went right on. Now I'll take the other little plastic washer and slide it on top. Now you're going to take the water pump housing, And I've already rubbed some grease in here, but you want to put a light coat of grease inside there. And you're going to see a couple little tabs here that are going to go over these two tabs on here again. So we'll go ahead and slide this on. Just like that. The way to have it backwards, I'm sorry. We'll spin it around. And now we're going to turn this drive shaft clockwise while pressing down on this, and this will help bend in the tabs on the water pump so to go down inside there. So let's turn it while pressing down. Just keep turning until it goes all the way down. Just like that. Now we're going to take our 10mm bolts and we're going to start reinserting all of these. I'm just going to run them down until they touch, and then I'll start tightening them in a diagonal motion, kind of like you're tightening lug nuts on a tire. All right. Okay. And then the one in the front. Okay, and all these you just want to snug them up pretty tight. Don't go overboard with it. I'm used to this wrench, so I know how I'm tightening it with it. Okay, at this time you're going to want to take this shift rod again, and you're going to want to press down and make sure it's still doing that spring motion, which it is. I'm kind of having to help it a little bit because there's no grease down in there, or I mean gear oil in there at the moment, but I can tell that is just fine. Okay, now we're going to want to go ahead and start installing our lower unit back on. Sometimes this water tube guide gets stuck up in here, so make sure to pull that off. And we're just going to slide the wide end over here, just like that. None of this really fits tight, and that's pretty normal. And I've still never had an issue with the water pump working correctly. When we start pushing this in, make sure this is faced at this angle. But once we start coming in, it's going to start hitting on here, and you're going to have to turn this shift rod out a little bit to make it around here, and then once you get up in there, you can, you know, turn it back in the direction it needs to go. So here we go. This can be a little bit tricky. You've got to find where that drive shaft goes, and then see, now we're hitting here, so we'll just flip this up to go around it. Now I can come back here and turn it in the direction I need it to be. Now we want to be paying attention to this water tube guide. Make sure it's going over the water tube inside there, and just start coming up like that. Now we're going to want to stop about right here, and we're going to want to look up in here where we took that tab off earlier and make sure that this rod is going right in between where that little locking tab goes. That way when we go to put the tab back in, the shift rod is where it needs to be. I've seen tons of people that have thrown all these bolts back in, and then you end up having to pull the whole lower unit off again. So I'm going to make sure all that's lining up right. Okay, this is the tab I was talking about from earlier. I don't know if you can see it right here. You want that shift rod to come up right in between the two tabs in there. I know you can't really see it, but it's right where it came from earlier. And if the lower unit won't come up anymore, you can just put your hand on the flywheel up here and actually turn this while you're pushing up on the lower unit, and it'll help line up the splines on the lower unit. So we're going to start pushing and turning the flywheel. I know you can't see at the moment. This can be tricky. Okay, it came all the way up. Let's see if it's lined up. Okay, so that looks good. It's going to go right in between the two tabs, right where I want it. You can actually take the tiller handle and turn the tiller handle, and it will turn that tab in there until it matches up with the hole. Okay, I know this is a terrible camera angle and it's not really wanting to focus, but I went ahead and slid that tab back through the hole of the shift rod, and just how the reverse of what we did earlier, taking it off, we're just going to press down and lock that tab back into place. So it should just click just like that. Now it's time to just put the 3 bolts back in the lower unit. Okay, so we put our bolts back in, all 3 of them. It's either going to be a 10mm head or a 13mm head, just depending on the year motor. We snugged them up nice and hand tight. We didn't go overboard with it or anything. Remember, this is not actually sealing your lower unit. So don't think just tightening these up is going to help seal your lower unit. It doesn't work like that. The whole water pump housing that we just installed is what is sealing the gear oil in your lower unit. Hey, I just want to thank you for watching this week's episode of Martin Marine. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next week.